What if the most powerful tool we have for tackling the climate crisis isn't technology or policy, but creativity? Today's guest believes design can do more than decorate. It can dismantle, rebuild, and reimagine the systems we live by. Victor Pasternak was a pioneering designer, author, and educator throughout the 20th century. He said, design, if it's to be ecologically responsible and socially responsive, must be revolutionary and radical. Hi, I'm Curly Steve, and we're searching for a greener room. Today I'm joined by Matt Hocking, founder of Leap, a design studio built on purpose and action. Matt brings a life's work of planet-centred creativity, from leading with B Corp values to mentoring the next wave of change makers. His approach is rooted in curiosity, challenge, and doing the work, not just talking about it. Hi Matt, welcome to the show.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me in and helping me navigate Cornwall via bus.
That's great that you came on the bus. We'll talk about that later. Yeah. But first of all, I'd like to go back, just rewind a little, and tell me when did you first find creativity, and how did it come into your life?
Well, that's a good question, and it's also, I guess, like, what is our perception of creativity? But for me, in its simplest terms, was with my father and with nature, living in Penwithwick. Dad was, although sort of a mix between a bouncer and a scientist, quite an interesting mix. So he was a bouncer and he was also a scientist. Nature was always a big part of us, and what nature's natural creativity, you know, and then lots of drawing, doodling, and just art was always thing. That was a thing in school. That's the thing I went after school into college. That's the thing that my job became. You know, being a creative, I didn't do graphic design and illustration, but I ended up doing creative art, directing other creatives. So I would say, really, from my first conscious awareness, and I would do these elaborate creative things in the garden. I would do elaborate creative things with paper and card indoors and silver foil. You name it, there was making, playing. I didn't have things like Action Men or anything like that. It was either natural creatures, rocks, crystals, paper, card, and Star Wars.
So and so would you suggest that creativity has always come from nature, and nature's always come from creativity? It's always been naturally aligned?
Yeah, I think, you know, the ultimate creative and is nature. We're inspired by everything around us, you know, whether it's the stars to the plants to the Fibonacci spiral that's used in sunflower, well, is natural part of sunflowers, the golden arm, you know, to then when humans are creating something like the Seed at Eden project, which is inspired by the Fibonacci by Sir Peter Randall Page. So it's all around us, all the signs, if we can feel and hear it. And actually, Curly, they say there's like a point where you're either a creative or you're an accountant or that. But ultimately, I don't believe that that's the case. Accountancy is just another form of creativity.
Absolutely.
You know, it's the way our minds work at super speed. To do that, it's a creative pathway. And so it's only, for me, the school system at times, well, no, at all times, this kind of, unfortunately, 100-year-old archaic system that needs a bit of a reboot. I'm not going to get on a soapbox there. Yeah. But it's more like that we are then funneled into, oh, you're creative, or you're sporty, you're this. But ultimately, it's creative. And then we get to a stage later on where only some people say, oh, I'm creative. And then other people go, yeah, I can't draw, I can't do this. Doesn't mean they're not creative, not expressive.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And we'll get on to whether you think people are creative, whether you think everybody can be creative later on. But tell me your journey from, because obviously, so you've been creative since you were this big.
Yeah. So
tell me about your journey from this big to maybe to Eden.
Yeah. So I'll try and keep this as brief as I can. My journey to get to Eden. So school was great. Mm-hmm. And I drew and I did graffiti and things like that, good stuff and naughty stuff. And then I knew, my parents were very kind of cool with me kind of thing. There was never like a big push, you must do this, must do that. And I guess later on a really good example of not having pressure on me. I did good at school, but where I excelled was in the art and the technical drawing space. And strangely, although I could have just gone on to sixth form and had the easy pathway, and geography was my other big love, but I love geography, tectonic plates and cold eras and things like that. Love a bit of old myth and stuff, but history wasn't for me. And I think academically I had enough, so I just put myself into the creative arena, and that meant going down to Falmouth at the time. University of Falmouth had an outpost at Camborne in the block of flats there, had graphic design and technical drawing. I chose the wrong course, technical drawing, because a few friends were going. Turns out that's like drawing precisely car engines and things like that, or book covers. But actually, later on in life, that served me well because I'm very good at art directing other creatives. So did all that, went to another art college.
So you finished university?
I never finished university.
Okay, right.
Left a term before the end, after 4 years, because I felt, low. I didn't get on with the head teacher. I didn't agree with his teaching practice, which was everyone needs to be his style. And I was like, but what about my style? I was getting lower grades. I had a brilliant bunch of supportive friends. I didn't want to leave. Pride, my parents had backed me to go there. It was in Swansea. But I left in the end, and actually flipping forwards, 6 months after working on a bar and a little bit of travel, I ended up going to a job interview. I walked in, realised I knew nothing about typography and graphic design, and that's what they were about. And I went into the interview. It was a Friday. I was the last interview of the day in Torquay, and I said, I'm really sorry. I'm completely wasting your time. I don't understand all the things you got. And I said, look, it's been a long week. You're the last candidate. You're here. You come up from Cornwall. I showed him my folio. I can definitely draw and sketch and concept. I got the job.
Oh, awesome.
And I've played that forward ever since. It's a slightly different story. But yeah, never judge a book by its cover. Be your most authentic self. And I'll always have a conversation, because you never know where it'll go. But yeah, then after that was then like 8 years. So this is my Torbay bit. And 8 years of being in Torbay and having a base there, and these two ex-Saatchi directors, which I didn't even know what Saatchi's was and things like that at the time, had moved down. West End work, West Country Prices was their line. And then they helped me like reduce my more complex illustrations to graphic, and then I started really understanding typography and the power of kerning and baselines and colour palettes and Pantones. And then after that, various ups and downs, 4 redundancies and lots of freelance, working with Sky, Lego, Glastonbury, all sorts of things. And I got disillusioned in it. By the age of 29, it was too easy.
Okay.
So I was just making things and people were just going, yeah, and paying me money. And there was no challenge. And it didn't feel like creativity. It just felt like, well, maybe that's what everyone wants, it to be so effortless. But I wanted more of a challenge, more meaning, more worth. And that's where then I got a call randomly from my dad going, oh, there's this Eden project in Cornwall. It's 3 miles from where we used to live. There we go. So I didn't do any interview preparation. I didn't really research Eden. I just thought, I'm a graphic designer, I'll go. Partly for my dad. Didn't think I'd get the job, and went down and went into a porter cabin, because when Eden was more porter cabin than anything, and then they had the main site. But for the next 3 years, I was in Porter Cabin City, as it was called. And so, yeah, went down there. They kind of looked me up and down. I had one of my toughest interviews. So one of the reasons I went for the interview as well, Curly, was because I had been headhunted for a while, and I didn't know what it was to have an interview.
Right.
And I like to experiment a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
What am I like in these scenarios now? I'm like 8 years older, sort of thing. And yeah, I didn't think they liked me, and I was a bit cocky, and they were like, why are you here? And I was just like, because I was dressed quite corporately, and I said, well, I've been in the corporate world, telecom, Sky, Lego, but imagine, my creative world and my corporate world meeting your environmental world. any designer worth their salt will rise to what their client needs. And they said, thanks. That was it. Didn't know what the wage was. I walked about 30 steps to where the foundation building is. I don't know if you know that at Eden.
Right, yeah.
And you could look over the pit then before all the trees. And I looked down and went, oh my God, this is my childhood. This is space and nature, my two big loves.
Yeah.
Academically not good enough to, or my story is of not good enough to be David Attenborough or Neil Armstrong. And that was it. And then I got a phone call literally on the edge going, job's yours, when can you start?
Amazing.
And I was like, so what's the wage? 50% pay cut. I didn't even get the highest band. So yeah. And then I was like, shit. Then I was like, okay, I will forever rue this moment if I don't step into this. There are plenty of jobs out there.
At what stage was Eden then?
It just opened.
Oh, okay. So really interesting.
Yeah, and the agency,
exciting.
The incumbent creative agency they were using on retainer wasn't able to cope with the demand of on-site material production. Okay. So I'd be the first graphic designer, and actually it's quite a basic role. And that's where any designer worth his salt is, because I'd always played a leadership role in other agencies. I wouldn't say I'm the greatest creative, but I've just got a good way of seeing creative potential in both client and team member. And so I knew I could see the future where I'd always be going, I wish I'd done that. And my 8-year-old self went, space, nature, I'm in, and I'll figure out. So I've just bought a house in Torquay as well.
Right.
So then that was some round trip.
Hang on, we're talking from Torquay to St Austell. That's what, 100 miles?
It's a 140-mile round trip.
140 round trip, okay.
Yeah, so for a year I was doing that.
Right.
My dad lives in St Austell, so I did stay with him. That was quite interesting. I was 30 then, moving back in with my dad.
Yeah. Yes.
But actually what Eden gave me in this sort of long-winded but rapid-fire journey of a guy with no design skills who was creative, learning to be a designer, getting lots of dream clients. You think Sky and Lego would be pretty cool people to work for.
Absolutely.
But that wasn't enough for me. We'll talk about enoughism later. Take a 50% pay cut. The next 3 years, I did the most amazing work I've ever done in my life. It was something like a soul meeting, soul creative. I don't want to get spiritual, but it was like the two things. Oh, this is why I had to do that journey of all the other creative things, because once I was here, I knew how to unpick the current way of producing things and then make it all production more environmental. So
and were you given free rein?
Yeah, I thought they would tell me how to be, Eden's designer, a creative, and they were just like, no, just do it. And then I guess that's that leadership space, isn't it? You just step in. So the client was Eden, and as far as I was concerned, that means we had to use certain papers, so we could design on anything, but actually it needs to be the right papers. So I went and started changing our print supply chains and re-looking at how we use paper. And my first comments from printers like, it's going to be expensive, it's going to be this, because not many people were using vegetable-based inks and recycled paper. I said, I get it. We will lead the way, but recycled papers, vegetable-based inks will become the way. And I kind of knew that in my heart. It's like a real big knowing, like the path that was already there, and you're just trusting to follow it.
And beautiful to have that backup from the Eden project.
Yeah.
And very necessary.
Yeah, and also cost-wise, sustainability didn't have to be more expensive, which was the kind of conversation. And it didn't need to also be kind of Hessian either, and jute and those. I've got no problems with them, but actually I like sexy surprise environmentalism through creativity. That's a storytelling moment, like why you might buy a chair and things like that. There's nothing at Leap, the agency that spawned out of Eden, that hasn't been considered, from where it's born to where it's been recycled from to why we've got it in our supply chain.
I like that. And is that a chore for you, or is that just something that happens? Because that's an interesting journey, isn't it? I think for a lot of people, they have to think, how can I do this, before they actually do it? Whereas it sounds to you like it's a DNA. It comes naturally. Yeah.
And I don't want it to sound less, because I know it's hard. People get stuck. I get overwhelmed choosing a broadband provider, but I don't get overwhelmed choosing the paper, because I ask the questions like, the paper merchant might sell me the paper that's environmental, but you go, so where's this paper from? They're like, oh, it's the UK. I said, no, where's the mill that the paper was from? Right. And actually very few papers are made in the UK, and there's some wonderful papers that are sold to businesses as eco, but they're originating in America, and that's okay. But for me, I would rather support, more localized trade routes and stuff. And again, all of this came down to this. It's just like the Matrix. It's like I can physically feel and see it, and the connectivity between people, planet, and creativity and material is like just so natural.
Yeah.
And that's what I said. So whereas before I was kind of disillusioned, but earning a good bit of money and a good bit of freedom, and then I came here and I found a whole new way, and I couldn't ever imagine not working that way. So yeah, so I was at Eden, and the design team was growing really rapidly. Lovely crew. We had designer makers, so where you see the exhibits, those would be made by them and some of my team, our team, my team. We had this amazing guy Ben Luxton that oversaw all of us, and in the end, it was about 16 of us. We had maintenance people maintaining the exhibits as well. And
you were saying earlier that you work with Chris Hines.
Yeah, so Chris, I can't remember what year Chris joined. It was maybe a couple of years after me, and he stayed a couple of years after I'd left. So I was there from like 2000, 2004. Before I set up Leap in October 2004. And we were invited, different team members from different sections, to go on this sort of, it's like a slightly immersive day with Chris down at the Blue Bar at Porth Towers. So food, drink, and then he was teaching us or showing us what it is to think in a triple bottom line way.
Okay.
So, people, planet,
This was
profit.
new to you then, was it?
It was, because that would have been 2002 then. John Elkington, who originally coined the phrase, I think coined it of Valans in 1968 or something like that.
And this is people, profit, planet.
Yeah,
okay.
The 3 Ps as people would call it.
Yeah.
And what we had to do is, I didn't have to do it in a graphic design thing. I was asked to look at transport and logistics. They divided us into sections that we weren't. And how would we do it using our skill set and mindset to do that job that isn't ours. Mine was to get flowers to Eden from Europe, Amsterdam, for the shops, and what would be the impact of it, and that. And I surmised by the end of it with our group, it's like, why are we getting plants in the shop from abroad?
Right.
Why don't we just say that we only sell
local, yeah,
and things. And there's different things. Some of the plants they sold, and again, this isn't a hit on Eden, but they had these amazing plants, flowers from like Africa and stuff. So it did show you a bit of the world, but did we need to do it? Is the question.
Yeah.
What is enough for the expectation of Eden? But what I learned there is I really love the triple bottom line, because I've never been very focused on money. Not because I have lots of money. Is I've always just had enough. Not enough if lots of things went wrong at once, but enough to have a good life in the region that I love, Cornwall. So all of it was a coming home experience. Come to Eden, 8-year-old Matt got to be in space, in nature, in a reused quarry in Cornwall, and suddenly bring all my design to some of the most amazing projects I've done, working with like Future Harvest and the Peruvian Potato Foundation. And that was more exciting than the Lego stuff. And when I do talks, I show a picture of Lego and then pictures of all the potatoes that are over in Peru, where potatoes originate from.
Yeah.
And so all these things, I bumped into David Attenborough once, came into work, and he's sitting there at reception in Portakabin. And like, it's not David Attenborough, it's David Attenborough. Wow. Hi. Really, super nervous. That sort of thing happened. Ray Mears was there, the explorer. I spent time with him. And I'd also, just before I started Eden, I'd been up in Tibet. And there was a lady coming to do a storytelling workshop around the oral stories of traditions. And we don't have in the UK many oral traditions. Celtic nations do, and especially tribal nations. And I'd just come back from Tibet, and she had left Tibet in the exile with the Dalai Lama. So we went off on side, and she was just asking how was my time in Tibet and how did it feel. And I'd gone to Tibet when I was 29 and before it was open to tourism properly. So it was a really.
Well, Eden was just groundbreaking, wasn't it? It still is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and it must have been a great place to work and be a part of.
Yeah, I guess if you think of it like a hive or an ecosystem, it was just really rich and vibrant. It would take 2 hours sometimes to cross the site, and as a designer, we're in a lucky place.
For you, 2 hours because you were chatting to everybody.
Oh,
right?
everybody chatted back, and it's hugging. So there's lots of hugging. And in the end, I stopped going out a little bit because I wasn't hitting the deadlines, and it was very deadline intensive space. But the beautiful thing about creativity of any sorts, but especially being a designer, is we're an intersection between people, planet, education, and future. And so, like, when you're on site, everybody interacts with you. You're sort of friends with everyone.
Yeah.
You know,
and those interactions are really important in
you're
the
neither high or low.
process.
Yeah, and you're neither high or low. You're just right. You're just in the middle.
Yeah.
And so friends with operations and car park, and friends with catering because they need their menus. And then the foundation with the science teams and the education teams and the leadership teams. So we got to really be part of the whole ecosystem.
So it's interesting you say that, because part of my creativity is that occasionally I'll go and buy a magazine on something that I have no interest in whatsoever, and force myself to sit down and read it from cover to cover, and without doubt I can come up with some kind of different way of doing things, just by looking at things from a different perspective.
And that and totally and flipping way ahead here, that's why it's always really relevant to me to have an emerging leader, a youth board member involved in everything we do.
Right.
You know, because that's the young perspective being acknowledged as an elder way. So there's me in one, I'm in an elder space, but then there's going to be other elders above me.
Yeah.
We need all the wisdom and all the perspectives.
Absolutely.
And those that are inheriting the space to those that have been walking in the space for a long time. So I'm a big thing for getting alternative perspectives.
Yeah, brilliant. So we went through Eden. I had a lovely time at Eden, and then
I fell in love.
You fell in love
with a girl at Eden.
Oh, you fell in love with a girl at Eden. Okay.
And then she said, this was about 2003, and we left in 2004. She had a son in Wiltshire, and for the first time in my life, I was like, oh, she said, I'm going to go and move back up to Wiltshire. I've been offered a job. I was, love-struck puppy, and she did become the mother of my kids. We're not together anymore, but we still work together at times. Yeah. I met her. She was
still good friends.
We work well together.
Okay.
So she's like a marketeer, and when we met, she was commissioning our design team to work, and her role was with the Soil Association, and she had a seat there, and she was looking at the organic supply chains for Eden. And so she wanted to do an organic wheat festival, and of course we designed how it looked.
Amazing.
And we got to know each other. We worked really well, and actually we have co-parented, over the years since split up in 2008, but we come and get into various projects. She's brought me into her companies she's worked for. I brought her into some of ours. She does a lot around purpose, life coaching and things like that. So it was kind of a good mix. And people still say now, wow, you two are really good together, but as colleagues. Yeah. But it was amazing. But she went to Wiltshire, and she's part of that inspiration. I kind of grew up a little bit with her as well. Eden, I was still very playful. So by that point I was like a 33-year-old playful guy. Now I'm a 53-year-old 8-year-old. But yeah, so she went for this job with an organic herb company, so I went with her. And then the thing was like, wow, what do you do after Eden? I couldn't imagine a job. My prerequisite for life has always been to live, work and play by the sea. So went to university at Swansea after being in Cornwall, and then got my first job in Torquay. People were like, hey, why aren't you going to London? Saying, well, London clients contact me anyway, and then I could get the train up to London. And I don't need that enough money to be in London and get caught in the rat race. My creative inspiration is the ocean and nature and being close to it. And hence, I guess, why the work of Leap. But yeah, Claire went up, I followed her, and I was like, oh, what am I going to do? All right, I'll create my own thing based on everything I had learned at Eden. So I would create a graphic design business, which would really be just Matt Hocking, but I wanted it to have a name because I like the cool names, like Underworld, the music producers, they had a design agency, their agencies. Theirs was Tomato. I'm a big fan of Lemon Jelly as well. And they're both designers as well. So they got their design agency, and then they've got their music side. I haven't got the music side. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I just wanted a word. And then I was thinking about two things. I was leaping away from this amazing safe haven in Cornwall, going to Wiltshire with no sea, and thankfully lots of nature, and it was a leap. So there's a leap of faith. There was also, I was very good at leapfrog. So, and that playful, mischievous thing as well. So there's always play. And again, I think one of the big things about creativity, climate and planet and futures is we need to have some serious play around it.
Play is so important. Right?
Yeah.
And I think as you mature, it becomes less and less prevalent, but actually we all love to play, and it's such an important part of our lives. Yeah,
and actually 100% with you there. And also one of the things for me, Curly, is like creativity is playful, and so that's where I came up with the idea of what Leap would be. And that's still metamorphosing. I'm still learning. I'm 20 years on. I'm not a perfect leader. I haven't got it. I'm learning every day. I'm experimenting, iterating, failing.
Is anyone a perfect leader?
Yeah, and we wouldn't be. Yeah, I don't even like being a leader or managing. But
imperfectly perfect.
Yeah, I do use that a lot. But I mean, I like the line, it's from a film, but if you build it, they will come. And I was told that I was going to do Leap, and we would produce, the planet would be our client, and it would be graphic design, always with the planet, the environment in mind. And people go, what does that mean? I said, well, this is 2004. It's like, if I'm doing a website, it's going to be powered by renewable energy. If I'm using my laptop, where I am will be powered by renewable energy. If it's on paper, it will be recycled. It will be these inks, and everything in between. I'd work out, and also I'd learned quite a lot seeing other agencies interact with Eden and stuff we'd done, what worked and what didn't in a tourism-based environment that lots of people were touching. So the maintenance team had to mend things quite a lot. So I had all this experience of materials that worked and didn't. And I took the best of it, like the fine wine, as well as having the house wine. And then that's really where it went. So I created Leap. Somebody said, oh, does that mean life, environment, art and passion? I said no, but I like it, so I use it.
Yeah, perfect.
It does work. And then I didn't have any clients, but I just said, this is what I do. And then I went out and offered my skills to a couple of charities and just said, look, I've got no clients, small charities. One was a homeless charity called the Hope Project in Exeter, was the first commission. So I did that for nothing in return for a testimonial. They really loved it, and again, it's a relationship. They liked me, got a bit more work. They started talking about me, and then the Recycle for Cornwall campaign was required 18 months to up the level of recycling in the region. And Leap, I won it because of my creative, but more because of my sustainability. And they said nobody was able to answer like you did about materials and how things are connected. And then it just started to flow from there. It just snowballed. So I'm up in Wiltshire now, and just like when I was in Torquay having to travel to Eden for a year, the next 2 years, most of my clients were in Cornwall. So I was up and down. So I was burning carbon just to service them.
Yeah.
Had 2 daughters up there, and then decided to come back. And so Leap was born, and I call it like a bat signal moment that people just started to find out about us. I think there was only 2 or 3 businesses doing anything like us, and there was Futera and Thomas Matthews, and actually Sophie Thomas, and both Ed, who founded Futera, and Sophie Thomas Matthews have become friends. And Thomas Matthews actually, unfortunately, just decided to call it a day, and she was been going since like 1999,
right?
So even before us. So that was Leap, and then it was just working out. So I knew that I had to use this energy, and I knew I needed to use these papers. And then magic just started to happen, Who should I use for energy? Well, the 2 main suppliers are Ecotricity and Good Energy. Good Energy were in Chippenham. I'm in Devizes. So let's go with Good Energy.
Solve is an SEO and web design agency that builds high quality, sustainable websites and strategies to help businesses grow online. They're also B Corp, meaning they're a business for good, making a positive impact while driving real results. As a special offer for our listeners, Solve is offering a free website audit and consultation. Just mention Searching for a Greener Room to claim yours.
So like I said, we signed up to Good Energy. We thought they felt really right about the way they used energy, and there's a lot of great energy providers in the UK. There were 2 very dominant ones at that time. breaking the idea of what energy was, and I just really liked good energy, and they were based in Chippenham, so not far from where we were in Devizes. Yeah, somebody from customer service had seen that we were an agency, and must have told Juliet Davenport, who's the CEO founder, and the next thing we're over there.
Amazing.
And Claire's 7 months pregnant, and it's me. We're wearing combats. We're not dressed up. There's a lot of people in suits. And we just talked about our values and materiality, because things weren't so digital then, and there was still a lot of paper being used. And again, both of them have a role, and both of them have significant environmental impact. And we were just doing it in the best way for the clients, and with reporting on it. And so we're telling them about all this, and they just said, "Yeah, we want to work with you." Much the same as that Eden moment, hadn't got very far. And and then that contract was, reality, it was 100,000. So we're going from quite small things to this big thing.
And this was many years ago. So
this was 2000, and this was in a year, so that would have been Set Leap up in 2004, and that was 2005.
So that was considerably more than what it's worth today then.
Well, again, we kept Leap's ecosystem small. And when you're by yourself, it always feels like there's more money. As soon as you have team and process and stuff, then, so we actually, at the peak of when I was just working by myself, Leap probably only now, 20 years on, earns between 100 and 200,000 more than those early days of me. But it was a significant step up for me in that. And also it timed well because Claire's own job, which we'd gone to Wiltshire for, they didn't have the money to pay her, so they were waiting on a house sale to pay for her role. That didn't go through. She's 7 months pregnant and doesn't feel like, it wasn't, it was 7 months there. So just before there, when it had gone through, so she didn't feel in integrity and authentic to go and get a job. So suddenly I was in digital creative hunter-gatherer mode, and the work came.
Amazing. So Leap is a B Corp company.
Yeah, so we would. Yeah.
So let's start by just exploring B Corp for a moment. What is B Corp?
Yeah, well, just before I go into what is B Corp, I think it's what wasn't there before B Corp.
Okay.
So creating Leap as an environmentally planet-centered, design and impact agency. A lot of people would question, what does that mean? Because they weren't used to the language, sustainability. People still really don't get the word and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's why I say graphic design with the planet in mind. And then actually on there, then I say, if we do this, it will be this way. If we do it that way, you'll know the footprint of it. Is it going to be any more? And I said between it's 0 and 12%. Then we started to get more challenge. And so we started to win environmental awards. And then we did ISA 14001 after BS 8555. And you'll know some of these.
Well, tell us what that is. Well,
they're environmental standards.
Yeah, okay.
For having an environmental management system, an EMS. So this is us as a small business, a chaotic creative that doesn't like Excel spreadsheets, having to
fill out an Excel spreadsheet.
Feel I had to prove that this was possible, that creatives could do this and not just do the creative work for the planet, but also do the backstory and the data to support the impacts.
For transparency?
Well, for my own, I think it's about truth, trust and love, I think, and just I got caught up into it. So the one thing about this creative journey on a planet-centered approach, Curly, is everything became sticky. Whereas before, history and all things by geography didn't stick in my mind, and suddenly I knew about all these papers and I knew all these stats. 80% of environmental impact is decided at the design stage. 70% of the world's papers go through the hands of a creative in one way or the other.
And this is all because you've got an intrinsic interest in it.
And an empathy for the planet, I think, as well. There's something about that care and love and reciprocity for our origin space. Spaceship Earth, as Buckminster Fuller would call it. And going back to the things, so we had all these, we started winning loads of awards, like 30 plus environmental awards. Then people said, you're environmental, but I don't see any creative awards. Yeah. So it felt we didn't have to prove that so much, but went for the creative awards. At this time, we're scaling up with the clients. I've moved back to Cornwall, 2 children, Claire, 2006 now, investors in people. But we knew now a team of approaching 10, I think. Very quick. And it was still too hard to explain what we did. It wasn't an easy conversation unless you knew the ones who already knew the bat signal, as I call it. They understood it, they trusted, so Bedreath and Steps Hotel and Scarlet Hotel, they were just like, we want a creative that fits into our circular supply chain. Actually, language like that was already being used way before circularity was being used. And you will fit in just like our fishmonger will fit in, Matt, your design. They do fish sustainably. ISO 14001, very complex, didn't really make much difference to us. We held it till 2015, and at the same time, I'd come across B Corp. And B Corp, in its simplest forms, is for-profit businesses using their business as a force for good. And its original line was people using business as a force for good rather than business as a force for good, because it was people in business. And in the early days, it was more like you got, fair trade mark for product, and then B Corp for business. Now it's changed a lot, and we measure our businesses, on 5 pillars, but now that's all about to change because we've got some fantastic new standards coming in. And LEAP was the first, and it's American, it came out of America, so there weren't many in the UK. I've been watching it since about 2008, just out of interest, strangely not curious enough to go, hey, can we do this over here? Anyway, it came to Britain in 2015. I had all the data from ISO 14001, had all the data from Investors of People, so I had People and Planet, had the way we produce work. We're the world's only, at the time, carbon calculator for paper and print. We'd had that created by a science team. And so we had all these tools, all these measures, and B Corp came in, and for the next year, I went through all by myself. People say it's rigorous and it takes time. I did it by myself on a much more archaic version than the very easy platforms they have now. And I did it, and got a phone call because there wasn't many B Corps in the world, and they said, look, you're 23 points above what you need to become a B Corp, 80 points. Why have you not pressed the button? Oh, I just want everything to be perfect. I want every answer to be perfect. It's not even about the score, but my own duty is. So I was overthinking, and actually the way I teach use of the B Corp business impact assessment, how I help solve and things like that, was just actually, it's not perfect. It's about a process. The journey's never ending. It's not the destination.
It's about moving forward.
Yeah, and doing what you can. You don't have to do all. It's not about the highest points and things. I get a bit frustrated with this kind of chase the points.
For sure.
And thankfully that's all gone now for the new standards. But it's nice to gamify it. So yeah, I pressed the button after Kate Hill, who's very high level in the B Corp movement, and she was heading up UK. And it was a really fond moment. She goes, yeah, just press it. And I was like, oh. And then she said, and the new assessment's coming in, because at that time, every 2 years, a new version of the BIA came in. I hate tests. It's one of the reasons I did design and creativity. No more tests. And I pressed it, and a month later, we scored. First creative agency, first B Corp in Cornwall, and the first creative agency in Europe to have that standard. And then things exploded. But also for me, the biggest thing on that was all this stuff to prove what we were. Just like when I became this planet-centered designer, Matt from his bedroom in those first couple of years, people understood it. And B Corps like to buy from each other, invest in, work with, support. So suddenly, I'm in this whole new community, the only creative. And I didn't look at it as a sales channel or funnel, but people seemed to like me, and work seemed to come, and the work got bigger, and we got a reputation of being a nice place. And that's where we are, and that's, I guess, my life's work, and that's why I wanted to grow the B Corp community here, not be the lone nut. I wanted some other people to dance with me, and now we've got approaching 100 businesses in Cornwall. And
Cornwall's one of the most B Corp areas in the country.
Yeah, second largest cluster outside of London. London's the capital city for the most B Corps on the planet, and the UK is the fastest growing B Corp marketplace.
Brilliant.
But the reason that is because we've actually, whatever we may think of our governments and things, we've got good laws, and we have a NHS, so we've got a health provider. We have pensions, state pensions. Many countries don't, America, South America, don't have these things. So we're very lucky that UK businesses score on average much higher on the first drafts or 2 drafts of going through the impact assessment than other businesses.
Amazing. Well, you should be. Well, I'm sure you are extremely proud of yourself for the work that you've done there and where you're at with everything, not just B Corp, obviously, but with the whole thing. Which leads me on to design for change.
Yes.
Tell me about design for change.
Well, design for change is just encapsulating that the work was all around change, but also still not just changing for the sake of changing. And it came from the Gandhi line, be the change you want to see in the world, which
Right.
I found, I think Chris Hines actually told me this, that's a paraphrase of a bigger speech that Gandhi did, so he never actually said it.
Okay.
You have to ask Chris about that.
Mm-hmm.
He's such a wise elder. And so what that was, that mantra, that line, I was doing design and I was in the art of change. And also the other side of things with creatives is we're this playful individuals or businesses that come in quite a nice way to deal with some pretty sticky stuff. So what else can we use design to change? Well, we can talk about people, we can talk about the environmentalism of the business. So with Sol, when I first met Lowell on a bus journey to Liverpool, and we're talking about what he did, he goes, I didn't know there was green hosting, and I didn't know about B Corp, and then look, green hosting and B Corp now. It's just that awareness. And so I'm not there to have a unique selling point, because I don't believe the planet and life is a unique selling point. We did get told, you got a really awesome unique selling point, this environmental thing. No, I need everybody to do this.
Yeah.
And so design for change was just our quickest way of saying it. And, again, it's a call sign. So those that respond to it, others, they don't see it.
Yeah.
But what we did in St Austell is we were on a roundabout in St Austell, and I had all the windows, which are, about a bit longer than this room, and there was a big glass windows, floor to ceiling. And we'd get people just staring at our team. So I thought I'd get some contravision, which is a form of window graphic. It's not that environmental.
That's where you can see in one way and not the other, right? Okay.
And then I created this woodland scene that had dinosaurs and businessmen and astronauts and animals and all things. And it was my representation of what's been, where we are, and what could be.
Right.
So anything from extinction to going to the stars and where we dream to what it is to be in business. And then it just said, be the change you want to see in the world, design for change. And that covered this whole thing. And we got so many people over the years, you inspired me so much with that thing.
I remember seeing it.
I don't know who it was. And we got clients that way. Other people said it just made my day hopeful when I saw it.
Excellent.
And I love...
And moving on with inspiration there, we talked earlier about, and you've just said about Chris Hines being a wise elder.
Yeah.
And you were talking about how you were inspired by the youth, your elders. Tell me a little bit about that.
So, although I might be a child inside me, it's a child that's had, experiences and growing up. And so has got set perspectives based on those experiences. So at COP26, I was lucky enough to go there. I cycled to COP26 with a bunch of other climate cyclists, 540 miles over sort of 7 days.
Excellent.
So, and when I was up there, one of the things that, again, B Corp, which I've been involved in, I was part of the original 18 B Corp ambassadors to grow the UK movement. I've spoken for it. I've been at their events. And out there, they did this initiative called Boardroom 2030. And what does the future of our boardrooms look like at 2030? And who needs to be at the table? And what do we need to be thinking about now? And so, and then a lot of that was bringing in other stakeholders, something that's very big for the B Corp movement. It's not about your shareholders, it's stakeholders, everybody, community, your workers, your customers, you name it.
Anyone you come into contact with.
Yeah. And so I watched this sort of lovely role play with young, what I call emerging leaders, youth board members, the existing board members. Body Shop modelled it, and I was like, I like that. That's really good. Again, you can go. My neurodiverse mind was like, grasp that. What if we did that at scale? And then and Eden, back at my home place now. After leaving in 2004. I told them idea, could I do an en masse Boardroom 2030? We sold out an event in the gallery to 100 businesses without them knowing the agenda. Then they got a surprise when they came in. We'd got loads of youth scientists, poets, artists, activists, and we gathered them, and on all the tables there were 2 of them, and young people, and we just let it pollinate from there. And then we modelled. We got Good Energy, which has a Good Future board as well. So that board ranges from like 12 to 18. So that already existed with our client Good Energy.
Amazing.
They came down and showed their role in guiding against the board, the main board, so how they work. And even now, from that one day, which is I think 2021, I had a company say the other day, "Oh Matt, could you help us do some brand work?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm working with this guy Jack," and I was like, "Jack, I know Jack." He goes, "Yeah. I was sitting on his table at your boardroom 2030. I was so inspired by him. I started a new company. Me and him are co-owners."
Amazing.
And how cool is that?
Wow, that is incredible.
Yeah, and for myself, run another event called Good Fest, and again, being conscious, I could talk a million miles and lots of different things, and trying to stay focused to you and and your audience. But again, when I set things up, I couldn't create a company that isn't got environmentalism at the heart of it, environmental action through the way it interacts with the world. And the same with Good Fest. Once we had Good Fest, of course it's got all that environmental, we don't produce merch. We're really conscious of our carbon footprint of all the things, but it was really important to have a youth board member. And so I'd been in conversation with a lady, Amelia Cruz, who's now a friend, and she was at our board in 2030. She was 19 then, she's 25 now. She's just stepped down from our board at Good Fest, and she's been on our board for the last 3 years.
Amazing.
And we've talked and worked and shared, and it's been brilliant, and I feel so much richer for it. So I called it my green rider. If I'm asked to do a talk or be on a panel or something, that I'll always have at least one emerging leader, young person on the panel.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's really important, because it's, again, if we're looking at life, it's just another form of creativity. And if we need to have difficult, uncomfortable conversations and really do the work that now and future generations need, we've got to have all of us at the table.
Do you believe everyone can be creative?
Yes. Yeah, because every moment, from the moment we wake up and think, what am I going to do today, is a creative thought. There's a billion synapses. I have no idea how many there are.
Yeah, but lots.
Going off. And that speed, how this is set up today, the shirt you're wearing, my shirt, is a creative expression. We're just told that creativity as a role is only done by a few. But I believe that a chef is a creative. The road planner, city planner who's working out the road, my God, that's a bit of creativity.
Absolutely.
Lots of logic, but it's a creative expression of how to move transport around the region and things like that.
And I'm really interested in the possibility of a no one, which I don't want to say that. That's a horrible thing to say, but you'll understand when I explain. And no one could come up with a solution, or can come up with a solution. Yeah. And someone who's not directly a creative can come up with the solution. So I'm interested in that idea that first of all, anyone can be creative, and secondly, someone out there could come up with the solution.
Yes. Yeah, I think there's a couple of little areas to that. So there is the belief in our creativity. And I think, is it like Picasso or Van Gogh said that like everything is imitation or plagiarism because nature's already done it?
Yeah, for sure.
There's that. There's our self-limiting beliefs around I can draw, I can't. But yet we might go into an art gallery and see a Jackson Pollock or something like that, or a Rothko, and go, okay, my 4-year-old could have painted that, or and then why are they getting 50 million for that, and the things, and this is all the thing, because we've all got these different viewpoints of what it is to be creative and how we see the world. Some love natural beauty of the world, others like the natural beauty of a city.
I had a friend who got told when she was 12 by a school teacher that her painting was terrible and she should never do any painting again.
Great.
She didn't pick up a paintbrush after that until she was in her mid-40s. Since then, she's been selling her artwork for incredible amounts of money.
Yeah.
And she's absolutely fantastic. But that creation was between the age of 12 and the age of mid-40s.
Yeah.
She shelved it because someone decided to tell her that she couldn't.
Thinking they're probably funny, or they were, just their magician was manipulating.
Yeah.
You know, everything comes when it's supposed to. So, you know, like ideas in the creative thing, ideas that didn't work in the 90s could be right now. They might come too soon. There's a brilliant book. I know you asked about books later, and I've got a few books in my bag. But it's a really simple book. I'm like somebody that likes to read something very quickly. So it's a few pictures. And so it's called The Path of the Doer by David Hyatt, who's the founder of the Do Lectures and Hyatt Denham.
Right.
And in it, it's all about, in a reality, in the way I read it and hear it in my mind, is it's about taking action. That a good idea, 99% of us will have the same idea. So that might be, again, these are my words now, a global consciousness. An idea comes into the world somehow, and lots of us get it at the same time. Only 1% actually are the actioners. And then those 1% might not have all the tools and individuals to manifest the idea into something that works. So like me, I'm a really good ideator. I could, you know, my mind's always exploding with new ideas, but I need what I call a transformer and operator, people that can bring it to reality.
For
so
sure.
when I'm doing, so I'm a good director of work and I'm a pretty good creative, but there's better people. And so I know my limitations. So I'm quite easy to step aside, but be part of the whole. Because I'd rather see the best work that's most fitting for client and planet than just doing something for my own ego. So again, if I need illustration or video work or something else, I lean into others that can help me be more brilliant.
So how can we create a better future?
How can we create a better future? Well, I guess there's a few tangents, you know, there again. So one, we need to do the work on ourselves. So creatively, I use the word creative, we have to do the work on our inner self, be happy internally and our own ecosystem, and that will manifest that it will work on our external. We love ourselves and understand our creativity, love and self-worth, which is a work in progress. I'm no, you know, Buddha or anything like that. I've not hit that sort of miraculous point. It's going to be my life's work, is just being the best version of myself.
For sure.
So I think there's in the hurly-burly of the day and the speed and just life, because not everyone has the luxury as well. Some people, that, you know, work, get food, sleep, work, you know, don't get that time. But what if we could have a society where we could all work on ourselves, and then that made us care, or naturally care, for everything around us? And if we were able to embrace our creativity so that we could have a voice within our communities to go, actually, what about looking at this way or that, or what do we really need? And we removed our, I'm going to take this from John O'Brien's Anthony, but we left our status and our ego at the door and looked at the bigger picture. The other side of the better world is, you know, any action is better than no action.
For sure.
You know, and we could all, and I hear when I do a lot of talks, so many people overwhelmed, like, I'm just trying to do that. I'm recycling, and I'm not driving, and I'm not this, and it's not enough. And you can feel the overwhelm and go, look, it's not just on you. If you do the bit that is enough for you, and it becomes a habit, or you feel you've ticked it off, then you can move in. You don't have to do it all at once. Like when people do these mad, silly diet things, like, right, I'm going to stop drink and stop eating food, and I'm going to stop sugar, and then you just get this overwhelm. It's impossible. You know, your mind's going, I need the sugar, and there's no food, and life's boring suddenly, you know? And it's the same for the environment. What can we change? What is your design for change? What is the change that works for you? It could be little things like just getting the bus, like I did today. Yes, it takes longer, but actually I'm in quite a peaceful state. I found on the bus, and
you quite enjoyed it, didn't you?
The child in me and the experimentation, but I couldn't chat on the bus. It was a bit rattly, so it wasn't the place to have phone calls. I've learned over the last few years. So Leap, when I set Leap up, as well as how we use, you know, energy and paper and how we care about people and planet, it was also like, where do we bank? And I made the decision straight away, which is easy when you're starting up a business, that I'd only use ethical banks.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas I'm still with my bank that I was a student with, you know, and that's not so ethical. But everything Leap does from the heart is as good as it can be.
So I just want to finish up by talking about something that that intrigues me.
Yeah.
Enoughism.
Yeah.
Tell me about enoughism.
Within the enoughism, it's kind of like the triple bottom line again, but now it's kind of my own play on words and stuff. And it was just looking at what it is to be an activist, and that we can all be an activist. You know, just doing a good deed a day, you know, is an activist. And then what more can you do? But then what is enough in that activism? So then there's reactivism, which I kind of look at is you realise that you do need to do something, but it's quite late, and it's going to be expensive for you to suddenly change, adapt, scrabble round. So, you know, you haven't done the planning, but maybe you have the resource and other people won't. And then the inactivist. Now, if anybody's watched the film Don't Look Up and things, it's a little bit like that. And it's like an inactivist, you don't believe that there's anything that's a problem. And so you just think this is life.
Yeah.
And there is either no way because you don't believe what's happening, or you can't comprehend it. And so that inactivist is, you know, that's the end kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, in a suicide or anything like that, it's just that don't look up moment. It's like, oh, it's too late now. Yeah.
Excellent.
So let's all be activists in a way, but while knowing what our enoughism is.
That's insightful. And let's all be activists. And if we can't be activists, let's be activists, and let's not be inactivists.
Yeah. And if you want to save yourself some money, take action now.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know, that's the whole thing. Is like take the action now. Grow a couple of fruit trees. I suppose this is evidence stuff, so I won't go into that. So
yes, well, let's that sort of moves us nicely into the next section. So what we're going to do now, Matt, and we're going to give you a minute to talk about each thing, which would be interesting because I wonder if we
just say one word for each.
But Alex over there has got the bell,
yeah,
and you're going to have 1 minute to discuss each of your top tips, and the first one there that you're going to discuss is switch your bank to one that does not fund fossil fuels or deforestation.
Yes. Go. Yeah, and actually this is the biggest and simplest activism thing you can do is know where your bank is from and what they're doing. Now, we've all got banks. It's now a lot easier to move a bank. So Leap's always had its money in the right places, you know, Co-op, Triodos, and now Starling Freeze as well. So we use those three banks. Harder for business, but personally, where is your money? Where is your pension? And that's these key things. There's a website called bank.green. And that's it. You just put bank.green. You go in, put in your bank. It will tell you what your bank is funding. And you can make a decision whether you would like your money to be elsewhere, which would mean changing bank accounts. Even if nothing else, information is beautiful. So check it out. I'm not going to say any more than that, but it will tell you the top 10 polluters.
Excellent. And that's, you've got some banks fueling fossil fuels, you've got some banks fueling war, you've got some banks fueling all sorts of...
Most banks do all of those.
Yeah.
There's not just one. Same as our pensions. Yeah. And so that's the quickest and biggest activism they can do.
Okay, number 2, you do not have to do everything. Do one thing well, make it your new normal, then build from there.
Yeah, so with that do one thing well, it comes from a bit of experience and this overwhelm. Am I enough? But actually, rather than being overwhelmed and getting stuck, what could I do? And it could be just, hey, I'm switching my washing machine. I'm only going to wash things at 20 degrees or on cold. And you just kind of adapt. And so it's kind of like nudge theory. What's that thing I can do? I don't like composting, so I don't have a home composter. I do throw everything out in the garden. So it's just going, what can I do that supports my local community, supports me, and then what more can I do? So it's finding what is your action again and what is enough for you to do.
Excellent.
And do it well, like a habit, build upon it.
Excellent. And that was that exactly a minute, Alex? You're good at this.
Well, I'm getting into the enoughism now. And I'm scared of Alex. Now he's got a bell. I can see he's turning into a man of authority. He's going to stamp on us.
He's eager, isn't he? Yeah, absolutely.
Fuck you, environmental people. That's not recorded, is it?
So number 3, believe in better. The media often tells us otherwise, but imagination builds futures.
Yeah, so in that is, if we only see a world that is limited, that is what the media portray, which is war, death, control, despondency. It's like, I never watched EastEnders, but that's what I really like. EastEnders, it's all doom and gloom. There's always a problem. So what if you're just around good people and in good community? That's never going to be perfect, but surround yourself with that. And it's about imagination. And Van Gogh says, as long as we can see the stars, we can dream, I think was the line. And so that's what this is about, is keep imagining better. Don't catastrophize, get that imagination going. And we maybe could walk into a better world just by believing more and believing in ourselves and others.
Absolutely.
I know it's going to be a minute, but if you've seen the film Creator, it shows an alternative version of AI if AI was good.
Doom and gloom sells papers.
Yeah, just like exactly. Good news doesn't sell.
So number 4, gratitude matters. Absolutely. To yourself, to others, and to this life.
Yes. So gratitude, I didn't realise I had a gratitude practice until I started talking to people. So from the age of about 23, 24, I just used to say thanks for what I've got, usually the sea.
Yeah.
Yeah, sea, if a relationship had gone wrong, the sea would be my healer and stuff. I'd spend time watching the waves undulate. And the art of just being grateful is an energy, a frequency in itself, and reciprocity, giving back for something you've been given as well. And so I'm a really big believer in that. And then as I learned words like gratitude and reciprocity, that makes sense. Again, I'm giving back for being on this planet in my way. I'm giving back to young men at the moment for my journey as an older man.
Yeah.
So.
Brilliant. Do something, not nothing.
Yeah.
However small, care for your patch, think global, think hyperlocal.
Yeah. So it's So with that line, it's more like act local, think global. So just by doing our bit here, the world is big and overwhelming, and there's lots of brilliant stuff out there. But can we affect it or not? Yes, as we rise in our careers and our creative pathways and responsibilities, we could be a world leader. But what can we do in community? So my good friend John Brown, he wanted to take action with your vote. He joined the local Chamber of Commerce, and he's now CEO of Chamber of Commerce.
He's now running it, right?
Yeah, and he's also on his local town council in Mevagissey. He's taking action with his vote and with his word, and that's where he feels he can make the most change. So what can we do, each of us?
And
Again,
that's the butterfly effect, isn't it? That when a butterfly, flicks its wings over there, it changes what's happening over there.
Everything is interacting, and we're at a really, amazing yet devastating time.
Yeah.
But I remain in the imagination, even though I'm very lucky of where we are.
Yeah.
And John, says vote with your vote.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I say, vote with your pound.
Yeah. So moving on, we're gonna look at your bits of evidence now, and the first one, which you've already touched upon, is the www.bank.green.
Yeah. If nothing else, it's a playful thing. Whatever you do, information is beautiful and awareness. And I do it at talks where we've got everyone on their mobile phones, and afterwards everyone's talking like, "Oh my God," So, and I don't know if I've got a pension in there as well. Or is that a separate one, or it's the pension?
No.
Like changing your pension. So £2 of every £10 goes to deforestation and fossil fuel in a normal pension. And the right pension is 21 times more powerful than switching your energy provider, becoming vegetarian and stopping flying, or driving an electric car. So that one thing, we all got agency to do so much. In this case, that is the vote with our pound, but we're taking action.
So tell me about the Better Business Act.
Again, something that was born out of the B Corp movement in the UK, because of legal structures and government policy. We, as B Corps, we change our article associations to go from shareholder primacy to stakeholder primacy.
Right.
Everyone. And people, planet and profit, not just profit. So we've all changed our articles to do that. And it's section 172, I think it is. But what if we could get anyone to have a business in the UK to be able to change? And so for the Better Business Act, you can go along to it. I think it's .org. Look after the website. And you can sign that you believe that's the law that needs to change. And this is, again, that power of law is so important if done right. So get on there. There's about 3,000 businesses, become a better business.
I like it.
You don't have to be a B Corp either to do it.
Okay.
It's just anyone can say, I agree that this is the way business should be.
Excellent. So the next one I've got here is the Sustainable Creative Charter.
Yes. So one of my many hats is Goodfest, CIC. So a community interest company, take no money from it, founded in 2019, creative conversations by the beach. And each year we try and rather just be a talk, like there's many events at talk, we always try and get something tangible out. So the Better Business, the Creative Charter, Sustainable Creative Charter, sorry about my words there, was co-created by 150 participants at Goodfest at one session, including people from Patagonia and things. And we all coalesced like, what are the things we need to do to change? So, and we say creative charter, but again, it goes back to all us being creative. So it's like, be bold, share, be human, challenge. It's really simple. Anyone can sign up to it and pledge to do it. But rather than pledge, actually take some action. Go, actually, how do I be bold? Well, I'm going to share more about the thing I do that's different in the way I do the work.
I love it. And then the last one on there was actually Goodfest.
Oh,
so tell us a bit about Goodfest.
Goodfest, where the Sustainable Creative Charter came from, and many other outputs, is really how can we pollinate better conversations where people don't feel alone, and they might be, I'm very lucky I'm in the B Corp community, so a very willing community, but not everybody has that or has a business, that could go through it. So we convened really these sessions once a year, and a few online things where 150 people gather. And we will bring in inspirational speakers. However, it's not really the speakers, it's all of the audience and the conversations between the conversations. So our speakers become our participants, they stay, they become part of the rich tapestry of conversations, and so much impact and changes come from there, as well as nurturing. I've experienced talks that, about eco-anxiety from a young person, which I couldn't believe that they were so close to ending their life.
Yeah. But
because they found community, they stayed in that world. And that Amelia, that was the end of it. She texted me afterwards. She goes, I hope you're one of the people that kept me in this world. I didn't. But that's what inspired me to go on to Band of Brothers, to learn to be better at listening rather than talking.
Yeah, that's why we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, right?
Yeah.
Matt, it's just before we go on to the last question, just tell us how we can contact you, how we can keep in touch.
Yeah, so contact for me is I'm Matt.Hocking on Instagram. That's kind of my main play things. I'm rubbish at doing regular posts. Agencies, www.leap.eco, first organisation in the world to get a creative agency, get a .eco domain where you have to pledge. Sorry to do an advertising slot.
No, it's all good.
You have to pledge. You can't have that domain without pledging to help the planet. And then, like LinkedIn, email. Find me. You'll find me under Matt Hocking. There's me and a footballer called Matt Hocking.
There you go. And you're not a footballer?
Not at all. I'm no good with football.
So, Matt, tell me one thing that we can all do today to make a better tomorrow. Help us find the greener room.
I think I just have to say, just believe that you can. No matter what it is, it's doing that something. So don't worry about size or small or comparison. Just do. There's something really good about being kind to you and kind to others. The bank, obviously, it's more than one, but switching your bank, or even just understanding what your bank does. And I've got a couple of books that are probably a bit too late, but a good book from a friend, Mark Shaler, who's been part of Goodfest, is You Can't Make Money on a Dead Planet. Really useful. You wouldn't have found me talking about money once. Something old, which is incredible, is that, operating manual for Spaceship Earth. How do we look after the planet and operate it so that future generations find a habitable space? So read a little bit, do what you can, and look at your money, because all of us can be a positive, force for good in the world.
Matt, you're an absolute legend. Thank you so much for coming in today and having a chat. And I think we'll have to do another episode because I know you've got lots to say. We'll have to bring you in again.
I think
sometime.
You've had enough of me. Yeah.
Another time.
I think I'm what my partner has to put up with.
Yeah. Matt, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you for having me, fellow shirt brother. Keep doing what you do as well. You've got such a lovely energy, and again, just for me to have the conversations and the memories. Sometimes you forget the speed, you move at. That's why I got you a little gift.
Very kind.
In there, which is about pausing.
Thank you very much.
And what is enough?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Searching for a Greener Room. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know what you think, who you'd like to hear from, any topics you want us to cover. Drop us a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. See you next time.